and welcome to the July monthly meeting of MNS. We're back to using Zoom because there was a time restriction on Cisco WebEx. Now they have said not more than 50 minutes. So that would have been very tough for us to confine to. And so we said we'll use Zoom. Zoom also has now a time limit of 40 minutes, after which, well, you could go back, and then there was an extended period where they do not disturb you. But Umesh and I, we said we will try. We actually did, and we had booked the Zoom meeting using that. We were to start at 8:10 and then go back, get off at 8:50, and then get all you in and continue the meeting. But fortunately, in between, day before yesterday, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, UN offered his account and said, this is unlimited time and things like that. Thank you very much, UN, for that. And that's the reason why we had to rebook the Zoom meeting and send you fresh details. All right. So now, I'm sure all of you remember about 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago, is when we started the Project RaptorWatch. It was a very exciting time. And in fact, in good times, every alternate Sunday was when we were hitting various places. And wonderful kind of sightings we used to get. Very good time that we had. But then we had other things that came in, because of which the whole project had to stop. We were not able to move forward for various reasons. And I'm happy that despite that, there was a lot of interest shown, and there were Raptors continued to be watched beyond this arc of Chennai. Actually, this arc, the architect of this arc is GK. GK has been watching, I think for the last 7 odd years, Raptors in and around Chennai. And so this keeping Chennai as the midpoint, if you go 100 kilometers to the north, 100 kilometers to the south, and 100 kilometers to the west, the semicircle. So if any of you had actually gone through the link, the Google Map link, which I had sent in the bulletin, you will actually see this map and all the various hotspots. About 17 were identified then. I do not know if a couple of more have got added. I think Chayur has become a hotspot now, and the SSN institutions is another place which have become a hotspot. So we have, over the last so many years, there have been a lot of data got added, and because eBird has also now become very tech savvy, the Madhu, actually, we were discussing going back to RaptorWatch in our physical meeting that happened last in the month of March. And we said we should take this up. And after that, Madhu spent a lot of time and energy going through all the data that is posted on eBird and put it into a tabular form, which got converted into a report, which was again shared and which is part of the bulletin, which was published this month. So you would see that there's still the same old 38 raptors which have been regularly seen in and around the diurnal raptors seen in and around Chennai, out of a total of 65 across the country. So we still have a very, very large species-wise population, and the range is also very well known. I think what we need to do for Project RaptorWatch 2.0 is what GK is going to talk about now. And I hope once this lockdown gets lifted pretty soon, since most of birding is, we can actually keep ourselves, not really, but then if we can really spread ourselves out and less contact, maybe they'll permit us to start birding again in small groups. Let's hope. So over to GK, who will take us through Project RaptorWatch 2.0. GK, and my usual request, all of you kindly mute your mics and switch off your video, excepting for GK. Over to you, GK. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vijay, for a very brief introduction. And good morning, everybody. So, looking at the background, I know I have used the same background that I used it for the previous presentation, but it is going to be different. We are going to cover exactly on what our objectives are for the project Raptor Watch. I'll give you a brief on how we have done. Uh, Vijay had already briefed us, but I will take you through what our objectives were and where we are slightly changing and things like that. And we'll also cover how we are going to tackle this every time when we move over with technology, we have to enhance the way that we do things. So likewise, as we have matured over the few years, there are a few things that we changed in a scientific way, is what I thought, and I have jotted down a small plan, and which we can fine tune, in the weeks to come. And when, as Vijay said, when the lockdown is out, we'll be out as well, looking out for Raptors. Quickly on the objective, it is pretty much same, what we had during Raptor Watch 1. So Vijay had aptly named it as 2.0. So it had come with, it's an enhanced version. So it has to come with some enhancements. So objective, record the abundance and monitor 38 species in and around Chennai. So this covers the accipitary formis as well as the falconiformis. So initially when we had, Raptor Watch 1.0, slightly the objective was different, wherein we wanted to identify or observe or record the number of different species that were found in and around Chennai. Wherein now that we have settled down, over the 5 years, the number of species, the raptor species that we have seen are not gone much. So only 3. When we started in 2015, we had 35 species in the list, in the checklist. Now that we have added 3 more in the last 5 years, keeping that in mind, so the number of species, new species that are going to turn up are going to be very, very minimal. The curve is going to be very flat there. So we thought, since we have the observations of the different species that we already have for Chennai and surrounding, we have enhanced this objective to record the abundance and also monitor these 38 species. It will be the new objective. That's the difference between 1.0 and 2.0. And the other 2 objectives very much stay intact. We have to gather complete comprehensive data on the habitats, which is very, very important. Along with that, we also wanted to get some breeding ecology of the resident species, because some of the species are in red category that I'll cover in the consequent slides. And also there are a lot of seasonal movements that have been observed. Quickly give an example, the Shaheen falcon, which we used to think that it is sporadically, there were sightings, and we thought that it is a vagrant which is coming out, especially the juveniles and the immatures that are trying to find new territories are coming out. But over the last 5 years, we have found that it is actually coming in as an monsoon visitor. So during the southwest monsoon is when the sighting of the Shaheen falcon peaks up, and we have started getting regular adult birds as well, which give us a clue that these are there is a seasonal movement of the Shaheen falcon. And also, if we consider the short-toed snake eagles, they also do a lot of seasonal movement. Uh, Wherever the prey is in abundant, that there will be multiple sightings, of even 10 to 15 of them together. And then there were places where there were no sightings, where it used to be always there. So these things are, I thought, we will consider for the current project. And of course, conserve these habitats, in collaboration with the local authorities, the forest department, and various communities, and also educate the locals on the importance of the raptors, and also the different conservation, or partner with different conservation organizations in order to take this forward. And why we started with this is, as raptors form the apex of the food chain. So knowing the raptors, knowing the abundance of the raptors, knowing the presence of the raptors will give a holistic perspective of how the entire habitat is doing. And that is when we have actually started. Somebody has a question. Okay, I can take that up later, right, Vijay? Or should we? Okay.
No, I think all questions I request, as usual, please post it in the chat box. We will look at it later. We'll go through one by one as we have done earlier. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. Okay, moving on. So let me move this window a bit. Okay, so these are the list of species. The 38 species that Vijay was mentioning, which are historically as well as observed over the past 10 years, and I have color coded them with different aspects. So quickly we'll go, I'll let you know what the color coding is and what is there in the braces. So in the brackets, the HC, MC or LC, all that I've mentioned next to the species are from the state of India's birds status of each species. HC is high concern, MC is medium concern, LC is low concern, based on the abundant as well as the trend that they have seen historically, as well as the latest trend that they have seen. They have the state of India's birds have come up with these status for 800 plus species. Most of the raptors that we see are covered, except a couple of them like lesser crestal, hen harrier, pied harrier. Other than that, most of them are covered. The reason I have mentioned that is it is very important we gather information on these species because it is going to help us on a long run. And species which are of high concern, I see that there are good number of sightings which are happening. Let's say if we consider short-horned snake eagle or redneck falcon, short-horned snake eagle is the widespread raptor, but then if you see the redneck falcon, if you see the older maps, in the bird guides as well as in the raptor books. Usually in Tamil Nadu, the redneck falcon usually will be a rare resident, will be the status for resident, redneck falcons. But then over the years, we have had multiple sightings of them, multiple pairs, and multiple breeding records of them. So they are thriving very nicely, in and around the Chennai's habitat. But then it has been marked as red, which is high concern for the overall subcontinent. So it is very important when we take this project forward, we also consider this point so that we give more weightage to the species that has high concern and medium concern. Of course, we do collect information on the other species as well, but we give more weightage to these species. So basically, we tag them under resident, migrant, as well as rare category. So in the resident common and the resident uncommon category, we get close to 15 different species. And in the migrant common and migrant uncommon category, we get around again 10 different species. And resident rare and migrant rare, we get around again 10 12 different species. So overall, out of this 38 species that we have got, there are three. I mentioned that there are three species that got added recently, or the ones that are marked in the yellow color. Lesser kestrel, eastern marsh harrier, and steppe eagle, or these three were not there in our list when we started in 2015. So now that these got added, and a good number of sightings of lesser kestrel have happened. That's the reason I moved that from rare to uncommon. Within the eastern marsh harrier and steppe eagle, only a handful of sightings. So I am keeping that in the rare category. So quickly on the ones that are, so I spoke about the ones that are in red, that is short-horned snake eagle and redneck falcon. There are some rare residents which are also shown up in red, which is Egyptian vulture and white-rumped vulture. So overall, there is a very steep decline even after the diclofenac thing. In the last 5 to 10 years, the very steep decline of vultures overall across the subcontinent. And of course, these are very rare residents for us. Wherein the Egyptian vulture, everybody must be knowing about the Tirukakundram, where a parrot used to come in and then take some prasad from the temple. And after that, there are a few other sightings around Tirukakundram. And the white-rumped vulture, very very rare. The rarest of all, I will say, because other than a couple of sightings that I can pick, one from Vikas and one from Vivek Govind, there are no other records of them in and around Chennai. Even outside the 100-kilometer radius, I don't remember any records of them of these vultures. So those are important. And going to the pink ones, the ones that are marked as pink are the ones that had medium concern. So these are also regularly occurring raptors. If you see Indian spotted eagle, So Indian spotted eagle again was considered as a very rare resident, but then we have recorded them breeding. If some of the members remember, we went to a place near Amarambedu, where we got to see Indian spotted eagle nesting, and there was also a immature there in the nest when we visited. So multiple nestings of Indian spotted eagles been found, and they are also next to redneck falcon. They are one more resident bird, which we used to think that they are very rare, but they are breeding residents. And on the migrant, if you see, there are multiple pinks. Um, Montague's harrier, pallid harrier, because of their insectivorous diet, mostly because of the pesticides, the numbers have reduced overall across the world. And again, greater spotted eagle and common kestrel are two species that we get in good numbers in and around Chennai. So the reason I'm mentioning this is we have to map this along with, once we have the data, we'll be able to map it along with what the state of Indian birds had come up with, and we'll be able to compare the trend, how it is between for the overall subcontinent and how it is for our habitat. And again, one thing that I missed is the white-bellied sea eagle, which is again a medium concern. But then for us, this also is very important because of the hotspots that we have, I'll say only in couple of, of the 17 hotspots, only in 2 hotspots we'll be able to see white-bellied sea eagle. Along with that, Brahminy kite as well. Even though it is least concern, the number of Brahminy kites, the population of Brahminy kites have dropped down deeper, especially for Chennai and surrounding. We used to see them in Adyar estuary, all along Kelambakam, all these. But then in order to see Brahminy kite, you have to either go all the way to Pulicat, or down south all the way to Chayur, or Kaliveli, things like that. So for these two species, which are very much dependent on backwaters, brackish backwaters. So it is very important we give weightage to these species because they are found only in a couple of hotspots. Okay, so I think I covered most of it. And on the rare thing, of course, Eurasian hobby, there are few sightings that had happened in the last few years. And black baza, which used to be wintering around Chennai, especially in Gindi National Park, and then the Theosophical Society, after that, after a very long gap, I think Vikas had a sighting of a single individual over SRM, SSN, right? Okay, if I'm not wrong. And common buzzard and long leg buzzards are again very rare. Of the butios, these are the 2 butios that are recorded in Chennai and surrounding historically. So long leg buzzard, 3 years ago, there were a couple of sightings 3 years ago. I think 2017 as well as 2016, I believe, if I'm not wrong. And of course, they are not there in eBird. So those two are very very important because the common buzzard and long leg buzzard are the only 2 butios that we get here. And common buzzard, the only known sighting is somewhere around Pulicat, and there are also some specimen records that are there in the Madras Museum. And of course, Eastern Imperial Eagle, we had one historical record from Kaliveli, and there was one more record from Vikas and Rama in Kaliveli, I think a few years ago. And last 3, hen harrier, eastern marsh, and eastern marsh harrier already covered. Hen harrier is under debate whether to include this as part of the list or not. So there was one photographic record which was initially being ID'd as hen harrier, I think by Tim Inskip. But then the subsequent discussions that we had, I think that is still in the debate. So probably N harrier, I'll be removing it from the list because even for the Tamil Nadu list, we are not going to keep it as a confirmed record. So I'm going to remove it in the subsequent list. So again, steppe eagle, there were a couple of sightings that we had. Both of them, one from Pallikannai and one other from Chengalpat in last 2 years. So I thought it is good. Initially we didn't had it, but so probably it is a vagrant, or a bird that is trying to winter over somewhere in Mudumalai or down south, and then it had crossed over Chennai and surrounding. So but then two notable records, so we have added that also as part of the species list. So yeah, okay, let me move on. So this is the one that Vijay was talking about. Do you all see my pointer? Okay, let me check. Yeah, I can see the pointer. Okay. So these are the main hotspots that we initially came up with. So 17 different hotspots, and within each hotspot there will be small hotspots within each one of them. That's how we came up with. So as you can clearly see, so Annamalai or the northernmost Pulikat is the northernmost point, and then Valajapet is the western point, and then Kunimedu or Kaliveli or Pondicherry is the southernmost point. So keeping these 3 points in mind, we arrived at this arc, and we wanted to do the Raptor Watch project within this arc. And so these arc, the reason we came up with this is this covers multiple different habitats. It covering grassland, cultivation fields, thick scrub, woodland, and also backwaters, plus some hillocks as well as cliffs. So that's how we came up with this different hotspots, 17 different hotspots. So we during the Raptor Watch 1, we were able to visit some of the hotspots, and we also had good sightings, as Vijay had mentioned. Good sightings of raptors, I think, out of the 38, probably close to 20. I don't remember it, but then 20 plus would have been sighted around that time. Because Vijay will be knowing that. Probably we'll talk about that when we have the discussion after the presentation is over. So these hotspots we went over. The initial plan was to have multiple teams survey these hotspots over the year, and then come up with a report based on the different sightings of different species. Initially when we targeted 1.0, all that we wanted to do was to record as many species as possible. So now that we have that in hand, outside Raptor Watch project, as they mentioned, there are individuals who are birding, as well as people who are contributing to eBird. With that, we'll be able to gather these data, and this still sticks to that 38 species. So what I thought is, initially when we started, we were a little bit over ambitious, I'll say, and we came up with these hotspots, and it is very difficult. Even if we have good amount of volunteers, it is very difficult to cover this many hotspots, is what I thought. So this time what we wanted to do is, we wanted to concentrate in some of the hotspots where the raptor numbers are high, as well as the frequency of raptor sightings of diverse species are high. So that's when I thought we will come up with a new set of zones from these hotspots, and we will concentrate only in these hotspots or zones during the first year. And based on the data that we get, probably we will expand the scope in the rest of the hotspots, or we will continue monitoring the same hotspot, so that, because we are going to cover different seasons over the year. So the species that are going to occur are also going to differ. So only if we do it over a period of at least 2 years, we'll be able to differentiate between how the seasonality of raptors between 2 different years. So what I have done is, some of the hotspots, if you see that they are marked in different colors. Okay. So going forward, what we are going to do is, we are going to call them as zones. Not as hotspot, but as zones. So each zone is actually being color coded. So we'll call it as yellow zone, green zone, orange zone, so that it is easy for us to identify or correlate which zone we are going to talk about. So with that, what I've also done is uh, collated similar habitats or similar hotspots, or hotspots which are close to each other. That's how we know these zones are formed. So Paravekad and surrounding is going to be a yellow zone, which is going to cover, backwaters, the Pulicat backwaters, the Annamalai backwaters. Along with that, it is also going to cover some of the small lakes that are, around. Probably, we'll cover about that in the subsequent slide. I'll cover in detail of, what each hotspot, what habitat is going to cover. Arakonam and surrounding and Kaveri Parakom and surrounding are going to be a single hotspot, a single zone, which is going to be the green zone. Teneri and the surrounding is going to be a orange zone. Amarambedu, Sriperumbudur and Nayapakkam is going to be a blue zone. Uttaramerur and Vandavasi is going to be a red zone. Tiruvadi Sulam, Sirikavur and surrounding is going to be a pink zone. So we have totally, 6 zones being identified. We will concentrate in these 6 zones for the next 1 year to gather data on the abundance as well as the breeding of these raptor species. Let me move over to the next one. Okay. So these are the different zones that I spoke about. So let's cover each one in detail and what species we see in each of these zones. First one is the yellow zone, which is the Pulicat and surrounding, or Annamalai cherry and surrounding. I think during the last raptor watch we had a good number of raptors sighted in and around this habitat. So this covers backwaters and shoreline, thick scrub, grassland, and cultivation, as well as small lakes. So why this particular yellow zone is very important is this is the only zone that we are going to this is the only hotspot that we are going to consider for the current Raptor Watch project, which has backwaters and shoreline. Others do not have. The rest of the hotspots do not have. And the importance is, as I already mentioned, white-bellied sea eagle, and then as well as the Brahmini kite. You'll be able to find these 2 species only in this particular yellow zone. So it is very important. Other than that, the other highlight that the yellow zone carries is the passage, the number of passage migrants that we get there. So naturally, if you see the species that are actually traveling along the east coast, around Chennai, you will see a bulge. If you see the map, go back. So, this is the zone, yellow zone I'm talking about. So, if you come across along the, birds that fly along the, east coast, at Chennai or this place, there will be a bulge. So it goes inside, in the Pulicat Lake, and there is again landfall, and then this place is what I'm talking about. So the number of passage migrants that we get here are considerably high compared to the other hotspots. So it is very important because lesser kestrel, Amur falcon, and then probably there are few old records of lager falcon and also Eurasian hobbies are around this particular yellow zone. So it is very important we cover this zone during the October-November period, so that we will get maximum sightings of the passage migrants. So other places are also, some of the other zones are also in the passage, but this being an entry point, and also other than the raptors, the other passage migrants that are recorded there are the Eurasian cuckoo as well as the European roller are also recorded in the yellow zone. So it is very important we during the October-November time frame we spend more time in the yellow zone, because that is the entry point of the passage migrants for our Chennai and surrounding. Next one is the green zone, which has its own importance. Green zone covers Arakonam and surrounding, Kaveri Pakkam and surrounding. So which covers hillocks and cliffs, woodland, grassland and cultivation, and big lakes. So this is one of the main, green zone is one of the main zones where we have good number of hillocks and cliff. Of course, the red zone is also has some hillocks, but then the number of cliffs and hillocks that we have in green zone is more compared to the red zone, as well as it's very important. This green zone is given importance in terms of Bonelli's eagle and Shaheen falcons, and of course, if I'm not wrong, my thought is that the Lager falcon population the sporadic Lager falcon population that we get in and around could be, from these area. There could be some breeding pair of Lager falcons which could be hiding around this green zone. So that's the importance of the green zone. It also covers Kaveri Pakam, which is a big lake wherein multiple sightings had happened of different raptors. If I remember right, 15 to 16 different raptors are seen in Kaveri Pakam just in a single day. And yeah, there are other small lakes that are around there. Plus the Amur Cliff, which is actually a breeding breeding habitat for the Shaheen falcon. So that is the only known cliff that we have in and around Chennai, wherein there is a confirmed sighting of a breeding pair of Shaheen falcons around. And of course, there are a lot of woodland around this Banavaram Reserve Forest, all that, and also a lot of grassland and cultivation. So this green zone is important in terms of species that are occurring in a drier areas, like as I mentioned, kestrels and short doors, things like that, as well as the cliffhangers like Shaheen falcons. Moving on to the blue zone. Blue zone, I think it covers Amarambedu. Yes. Okay. Blue zone covers light scrub, grassland and cultivation, small lakes, and as well as small quarries. So blue zone covers Amarambedu, Sriperumbudur and surrounding, as well as Navalur, as well as Nayapakam and surrounding. This has a uniqueness again. Each of the zones has its own uniqueness, and this is the only zone where all the 5 harriers have been recorded. Pallid, Eastern, as well as Eurasian marsh, Montagues, as well as Pied harrier. All the 5 harriers, good numbers of them are recorded in this blue zone. The reason is because this has a lot of grassland and cultivation with small lakes around. So and also there are quarries and light scrub, and if you remember, there are multiple quarries. One of them is the Amarambedu quarry, where we get the great horned owl as well. So this has always been harrier capital, I'll say, because not only they occur for because of the cultivation and the grassland, not only they get a very good feed, but there are also good grasslands where they roost as well. So of all these 6 different zones that I have visited, the most number of harriers, the roosting harriers, are seen in the blue zone. So it is very important when we do the Raptor Watch 2.0, we also spend time in the evenings, especially in the blue zone, wherein we'll be able to record the abundance of the roosting harriers as well. Moving over, the orange zone, which has big lakes, grassland and cultivation. There are no other notable, I'll say, habitats around the orange zone. So the orange zone covers more of Kanchipuram. As everybody knows, Kanchipuram is a capital, lake capital, and then there are a lot of big lakes around, as well as these lakes are more or less, used for irrigational purposes, and there is a lot of cultivation and grassland around as well. So the places around Tenneri, Nadapete Lake, Utukadu Lake, and then Katur Lake, all these are very big lakes where the abundance of raptors are also high, especially the grassland lovers like common kestrels, lesser kestrels, and then short-toed snake eagles. More of all open habitat raptors love this habitat, and most of the raptors, open habitat raptors, have been identified as well as observed in this area. So it is very important we give weightage to this. Along with that, another notable sighting of the orange zone is the number of Indian spotted eagle sightings, as well as the breeding of the Indian spotted eagles around this orange zone is very high. So there are multiple nestings being observed, as well as redneck falcon nestings also being observed in the more in the orange zone. So it is very important for we give weightage for these 2 raptors in the orange zone. Moving on to the red zone. This is slightly drier habitat, which is I'll say southwest side of Chennai. This covers the Uttaramerur Lake, and then there are multiple cliffs and small hillocks around this habitat. So red zone covers big lakes, as I mentioned, the Uttaramerur Lake, and there are few other lakes that are around Vandavasi and surrounding. And there is a light woodland as well as scrub, plus hillocks and cliffs, as I mentioned. This particular habitat again is important in terms of the residents of hillocks and cliff like Bonalese eagle, and then Shaheen falcon, and then possibly there are legged falcons hiding out in some of the hillocks as well. That's the importance of the red zone. And coming to the pink zone, our favorite of all, because the proximity, this is the zone which is very closer, compared to all the other zones. This is the zone which is very closer to us from the city. This covers again Sirutaur and surrounding, Katur Lake, Amur Lake, and then what is that other one? I forgot. Okay, and also this also covers, this is one place where we cover, thick scrub. Other zones we don't have thick scrub. There are some scrub around the yellow zone, which is Pulicat, but then there is a thick scrub and woodland, which is the highlight of the pink zone, where the oriental honey buzzard, the numbers are good, and there are also multiple nesting sightings of the raptor around this zone. And this also has mid-sized lakes and as well as grassland and quarry, where we get to see raptors like short-chain eagle, redneck falcon, and all the other open country raptors. Knowing the proximity as well as the number of different species and diverse habitat that supports, this is again an important zone that we carry out our raptor watch. So basically, what we do is these five zones, yellow, green, blue, orange, red, pink zones are the ones that we're going to cover or concentrate during our raptor watch for the next 1 year. Okay, there are a few factors that we need to consider. I'll simply go through some of them that we already know, but then it is important that I cover so that we brush up our knowledge on what we are actually looking out for, so that it makes sense. There are new people who will be joining us for the raptor watch, so I thought it is important we cover these points. Starting with the survey preparation. So familiarize the habitat and the inhabitants. Yes, so we had gone over the different habitats, what are the different habitats that we have, as well as we gone over in brief, what are the different species that we can get in those habitats. That is point number one. Species identification. Yeah, we have many people, many of our volunteers here who had joined in the previous walks, they are good in identification. But then what we'll also do is, as a follow through, we'll also have a small workshop on the different species that occur here, and also some tips on species identification that we will cover in the consequent workshops. That is before we start. What we can do is the lockdown is going to take some time to get over, so we'll make use of this time to do all this workshop and prepare ourselves for the service. Bird behavior, again, this is important, because when we are going to see the, say for example, harriers are early racers, and they'll go out for hunt very early in the morning, so that we have to know. And some of the raptors are crepuscular in nature, all this that we know, which is going to help us in the survey preparation. When to survey is again very important, because diverse habitats needs to be covered, and diverse raptors are going to occur across diverse seasons. So it is very important for us to know when we are going to do the survey, what time of the day that we are going to do the survey. As I already mentioned, we have to get the abundance of the harriers around. It is better to do it in the evening around the places where they roost. So things like that. And maps, yeah, we have a good amount of information on the maps. So we have already covered that. We are good there. Next on the right are the factors to be considered. So whether it is absolute versus relative abundance. So absolute abundance is going to be very, very difficult, because raptors having a very wide distribution, as well as a very wide what do you call it? I'm not getting the word. So since they are, they cover a very wide area, it is very difficult for us to come up with a very absolute abundance is very difficult. So we go with a relative abundance. Census with the sampling. So sampling is not going to work out here because some of the raptors are confined to certain areas, and so even if we take a big lake like let's say Teneri Lake, so if you say redneck falcon or short-toed snakebill, they are confined to very very specific areas. Even though they cover the entire lake. So if you do a sampling, there is a very good tendency that we'll be able to miss it. So we'll go with the census wherein the entire lake bed or the entire hotspot is covered. I mean, these are some of the things that I have come up, but we will refine this over the period after we have some brainstorming sessions with each one of you. What methods are going to be used? Simple species list versus species discovery curves versus encounter rates. So these are some of the scientific terms that we are bringing in part of Raptor Watch 2.0. These are the enhancements that I mentioned that we are going to cover during Raptor Watch 2.0. So simple list is the species list. Will chop it off because we already have the species list in hand. So species discovery curves and encounter rates are the ones that we're going to cover, but we'll talk more about that in detail in the future coming sessions. What all to be recorded? So nesting, individuals, breeding pairs, territories, bird behaviors, all that need to be recorded because, and of course, the abundance have to be recorded. We are going to see it in a very holistic perspective of the raptor families. How data analysis to be done and results to be reported. This is something that we need to discuss on in the future discussions. Documentation, zone labeling with coordinates. So we already have the zones labeled with us. Date, time, weather conditions. It's very important. This documentation part is when we go to the raptor watch, what are the things that we need to consider? Zone labeling and with coordinates, and then date, time, and weather conditions. Very important because we have passage migrants, we have winter visitors as well as residents. So this is date, time, and weather conditions are very important. Species, number of, what is the species and what are the number? The number of particular that species that we see. What is the sex, if it is possible, a male, female, or a pair, and approximate age. All this is very important because so that we'll know, what kind of population which comes over. Let's say if we see only the juvenile Bonelli's eagle always, between July to August or September, it means that the ones that are come from the latest brood are trying to establish territory, things like that. Photographs and calls are absolutely, photographs definitely make sense in order to identify them perfectly, as well as calls are especially for raptors, most of the raptor calls are very similar. So but then if there are things like common kestrel as well as Shaheen falcon, these have a little bit of calls which can be differentiated. So it is very important we also record their calls. Of course, database eBird is going to be the database, and we'll have some kind of analysis engine down the line in order to analyze the abundance. Probably we'll take the help of guys like Suhail as well as Ashwin, who had actually done this state of Indian birds, so that we match the same way. The same way that they have done it for the state of Indian birds, we'll match the same way so that we'll be able to see the difference. How it is between the overall subcontinent versus the Chennai and surroundings. So Raptor Watch 1.0 versus 2.0. So too many hotspots been mapped during the 1.0, as I already mentioned. We were a little bit over ambitious, and now we are only handful of hotspots to cover, so that we have enough volunteers in hand, as well as will be able to concentrate on those where the raptors are abundant. So the first one is aimed at simple species list. We just wanted to identify as many species as possible for the Chennai and surrounding, wherein 2.0 is going to be, we are going to work on a relative abundance index as well as their breeding ecology. One site was surveyed at once. Yes, we as a whole group, we went in and surveyed a single site at once. But then in Raptor Watch 2.0, what I'm envisioning is to have multiple hotspots that are closer together to be surveyed. I'm getting a little bit of echo back. Okay, it's okay now. And again, in Raptor Watch 1.0, it was more of random visits. then wherein we wanted to get in a regular visits for 2.0. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is a basic survey plan that I thought will work out. But then, as I already mentioned, this is a very on a very high level. Over the next few discussion, we will fine tune this further. We'll also bring in some of the experts.
GK, you are muted.
You're muted. Yeah, can't hear you.
Can you hear now?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I was doing something else and it got muted. So I'll repeat again. So this is a very brief survey plan that we have for Raptor Watch 2.0. This is not the final plan, but this is a blueprint. But then we will enhance it over this blueprint. And we know the next few sessions we'll also bring in people like Shashi Kumar sir and have kind of brainstorming how we enhance this further. And then also we will go with as scientific as possible, compared to 1.0. So this is a very high level plan, as I mentioned. So minimum of 4 groups will survey multiple closer hotspots on the same day and same time. So the reason is, as raptors move between different hotspots that are next to each other, when we are going to evaluate their abundance, let's say the short-toed snow eagle, which is there in Amur Lake, within let's say in another half an hour, it can come over to the Sirutaur Lake. So things like that. So what I thought is this is more like a synchronized survey that they do between, especially this they do it for mammals. The synchronized survey for elephants, they do it across 3 different states, Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, so that they don't recount or overcount the same animals. So likewise, we'll come up with some kind of idea wherein we have a minimum of 4 groups who will cover multiple habitats or multiple hotspots within each of the zones. So when we take let's say green zone, within green zone there will be multiple smaller hotspots within the green zone with closer proximity. So there will be 4 teams who will be doing the survey together. They'll start at the same time and end at the same time, and probably we will be creating checklist of half an hour so that we'll know if there are overlaps. So let's say we start at 6 a.m. and then close it at 10 a.m. This is on for morning surveys, and especially for evening surveys, we have to start somewhere around 4 o'clock and wind it up at 6:30, especially for harriers and other crepuscular species. So 2 zones to be covered in a month. So likewise, how we did last time. So every alternate Sundays is what we did. So we covered 2 zones in a month, which means that in a month, over a period of 3 months, we'll be able to cover all the 6 zones. So survey will happen in 4 phases, wherein we cover passage, wintering, breeding, as well as post-breeding raptors. So I have planned it in such a way that during the passage, let's say if we start from October to December, all the 6 zones are covered for passage. Again, for winter, all the 6 zones will be covered for winter. Likewise, all the 6 color-coded zones will be covered for each of these different seasons, so that we'll see the pattern of how it is changing. And of course, the data analysis to be done at the end of phase 4. And based on how this goes over the next year, I definitely would like to have this continued for 2 years, so that we'll have a handful of data which can be analyzed better, because the abundance will also vary based on not only based on seasonality, it varies based on let's say what are the different things that are happening around the habitat. To quickly give you an example, this is from one of our observations, which is very important that I share here, because it is based on this is for the abundance of the short-toed snake eagles, right? So we see them everywhere, but there are certain places where we see them in good numbers, especially there are sightings of 15 of them around, the Amur, not the like the Navlur Lake once, and then there were close to 11 or 12 of them around North Ayur, yeah, Teneri, around Teneri and surroundings. But then these places, they were occurring in a very good numbers. But then at certain times, you'll not be able to see even one or two. So when we dig in deeper, we come to know that that abundance is happening based on, even though they are spread across the lake beds, they are not actually dependent on the lake bed for food. So we have seen them in good numbers, even with the lake is almost 80% full of water, when only 20% of the lake bed is accessible. Still, there were in good numbers. But then when the lake bed was completely dry, there were only one or two. So that means that they are not depending on the lake bed for food, but they are depending on the habitats that are surrounding the lake bed for food. Say for example, what had happened is during one of the sessions, I think it was around 2013 or 2014, if I remember right. In Navalur Lake, we had close to 15 different short-toed snake eagles in the lake bed. They are hovering all around that lake bed. But the next consecutive months, next consecutive years, we don't see them. After analyzing that, what we came to know is there were lot of cultivation that are happening around the Navalur Lake, and all the cultivation, the harvesting was happening over the period where the numbers were spiking. So they were depending on the harvest, so that when the harvest happens, the snakes are exposed, the different rodents are exposed, things like the other prey species are exposed. So when harvest happens, things like short-toed snake eagle as well as Indian spotted eagle congregate in those areas. So it is not just based on the seasonality, it is also based on what are the different things that are happening around the habitat. The number of the abundance goes up. So this also gave us a clue that there is a seasonal movement of the short-toed snake eagle across different habitats. So it is important for us to record them as well. I think we are at the end of the presentation. So what is going to follow are multiple planning meetings that we need to have based on the volunteer support that we are going to get, and the survey teams. Of course, we have to identify the survey teams, as I mentioned. Minimum of 4 survey teams at least. We need to have one or two who are good in identification of the raptors need to be there in the survey teams, and all the 4 teams have to be available on the same day, because we are planning to survey on the very same day across few different hotspots within each of the zones. And of course, we will also have some identification workshop following up in the next couple of weeks. That brings me to the last slide of the presentation. Let's discuss.
Thank you very, very much, GK. That was phenomenal. I think there's a lot of time and effort that you have actually put in order to plan this whole thing out. And I think the timing, and I think what you have actually planned in terms of starting off from the month of October, September, October is actually a good idea. I hope it really works.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's reasonable that we will be able to start. And also the fact remains that since there are a lot of other things that we have to get ready with, it's a good idea that we start our preparation right now. And yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing and phenomenal. And I know we'll be covering almost the same areas. Just to fill in, you were asking this question. I think in the last 1.0, we had actually cited 23 out of 37.
Okay.
Yeah, which was not bad. If you.
Yeah, of course. We had only a handful of.
Yeah, I know. And we were going everywhere, everybody together at the same time. And I think this simultaneously trying to do in 4 spots which are close to each other is a great idea, and a great differentiation that it will make a lot of difference to the both the abundance and the range, because we are talking about seasonal movements. I think the range and the abundance data that we will get now will be amazing, absolutely amazing. So I'll quickly go through what's been posted on the chat.
Sure.
Yeah, so that you will be able to cover as many. Yeah. As usual, everybody is very happy that you have come up with something which is phenomenal. And one second.
No.
Ashish was asking about, is this the paddy fields north of Sirtavur Lake? I think he was talking about from the
Thank you.
Hello.
You can ignore that question. Ignore that point.
Yeah.
Ignore that. It was just.
Okay. Can everybody kindly switch off your mic so that only till we answer these questions or they are done. Okay. Another question from Ashish is, when you mean seasonal movement, are you referring to local migration of these species within a similar geography?
That's true.
Yeah. So this would cover everything. No, this would cover not just the residents, but will also cover the passage migrants as well as the regular migrants, right?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Is that okay, Ashish? Are you okay with the answer?
So, do we know from Raptor 1 that some of these resident species are moving across geographies through the year? That is, I'm saying, within the Chennai and surroundings area. Do we have any suspicions about it or any observations about that?
So yes, Ashish, the short-toed snake eagle example that I told, right? So based on the availability of food as well as mostly based on the availability of food, there are a lot of movements, because the place where we used to see regularly short-toed snake eagles, they will vanish for a couple of months. This is not just from a single observation, multiple observations. They will vanish for a few months, and then they come back and congregate again. Once good amount of prey is available. So not just that, and also if you see Shaheen falcon as an example, that also does a seasonal movement, because we have started seeing them down here, especially during the monsoon. And if we start connecting the points, just to say an example, what we have done is we took all the Shaheen falcon sightings of from eBird, and then when we tried to map it, we were able to see some kind of movement. There were sightings that were happening during the peak summer, that is between May, June, July. They are very close to the shoreline. Not very close to the shoreline. Let's say they are most of the sightings were say 20-30 kilometers from the shoreline. But then when we see when we take the sightings that are happening around October, November, they are in the mid, let's say around Kanchipuram, Kavaripakam, all these areas, Vandavasi, these areas. So we were able to see some kind of movement, of this based on our own sightings as well as the trend that we see, data that we see in eBird.
Yeah. Thanks, GK, for your elaborate explanation. I think that largely answers the doubt that has been raised. Now, Dr. Badri had a suggestion. He was saying that please consider comparing equal number of non-hotspot sites in the same zones on the same days. You might have done this 5 years back. I think we kind of did it, but I think it's worth repeating is what he said. These spots could be randomly chosen based on crude methods. By this, one can categorize the raptors as generalist raptors and specialist raptors, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that is a notable comment. So we will consider that. Yes.
Yeah, so we can look at the equal number of non-hotspot sites also. In fact, Dr. Badri, what normally happens is when we go to this, the hotspot is just a point a place in order to identify which is familiar, and there's a whole range which places which are covered close by, and when we actually go there. So anyway, thanks so much, Dr. Badri. Chandran had a question. How do you define large, medium, and small lakes in terms of area? What about wetlands?
What do they do? Wetlands? I mean, these are wetlands, of course. They cover wetlands as well.
Correct.
So, okay, when I say big lakes, of the size of Kaveri Pakam, Tenneri. All these are. It will not be an exact match, but they are all of a big size. And when I say small lakes, things like Sirthavur and then Ammur, all these lakes.
Yeah.
It is not based on exact size or the overall how do we put it in terms of the exact size, but based on the vastness.
Abhishek says that he saw the northern Goshak, the single sighting of Sirthavur in November 2011, and the Brahmani kite single sighting from Somangalam Lake in this year's AWC. Yeah, okay. Oh, yes, actually, yeah. That is interesting.
Yeah,
that is interesting. Somangalam is the one which is close to Amarambedu, no, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Just come back to what Umesh has said. He suggests that maybe you could put also together a document that you could share on the e-group and WhatsApp group for the benefit of those members who could not attend today. That we will discuss and do that, GK, because there would be more than what just this that would be needed. Yeah. Ambika says, Ambika requests, would you be able to show the map again and pointer? Can you tell us where each of the zones are? And she also queries hotspots and white being left out. Vedandangal, Pallikarnai. I mean, in the map. Sure. Yeah.
Let me go to the map. Okay, so this is Padavekadu and surrounding. This is the yellow zone, and then from there we are moving over to the green zone, which is Arakkonam, Kaveri Pakam and surrounding, which is the westernmost point of our Chennai region. So this is where we have the Kaveri Pakam Lake, and then here we have the Ammur Cliff, and then we have the Sholingur Cliff, all that. Okay. And then moving over Tenneri and surrounding, this is Tenneri and surrounding, which has the maximum number of lakes and grassland, which is the orange zone. And then we have Amarambedu, Sriperumbudur and Naipakam. This is Amarambedu, Sriperumbudur and Naipakam. This is the blue zone. And then we have Uttaramerur and Vandavasi, which are the red zone. And then we have Thiruvadisulam, Sirthavur and surrounding as the pink zone. So basically we are covering everything. See, the reason we are not covering, there are lots of sightings, people move around and lots of birding is happening around Chennai, and anyway from eBird we'll be able to get what's happening within the Chennai. But these are the hotspots which are outside the Chennai, wherein there is no regular monitoring which is happening. So which is important. That's the reason I left out Pallikarnai, Indian National Park, all that. And then probably during the next course of the year, when we have multiple volunteers, some of the volunteers will continue with these zones, and then the rest of the volunteers will start covering the new hotspots. Probably we'll plan it out based on how things pan out in during the next year. So basically, we are covering the entire arc. So Pulikat, and then Arakkonam and surrounding, Sriperumbudur, Tenneri, and then Vandavasi, as well as Siruthavur and surrounding. See, this is one area again. This Chayur, Kaliveli, and other places. This is another area which is very, very important for passage migrants, as well as as far as raptor abundance is concerned. But the proximity, it is very, very far, and commuting is going to take the entire day out. So I thought, probably we'll start with these 6 hotspots with the other hotspots.
Yeah, so I think Srinivasji and Madhu, I'll ask this question. I know it's going to be a little tight that we'll be able to do only about 2 visits in a month. So giving us enough time in 3 months to cover 6 zones. Now, so the question is, would 1 visit alone be enough to gather adequate data? And would we want to increase the field visits even if not all volunteers can attend? I mean, this is...
Yeah, definitely. See, again, the reason we had planned it that way is the number of people who are available for As I
Correct.
already mentioned, we at least need 4 people minimum, because even if 4 people are going to in parallel going to survey the 4 zones. Since we are going to talk about abundance and we wanted to do a synchronized survey of the 4 teams, at least couple of them from each of these teams have to be available. So
Yeah.
if that is the case, definitely we can increase the number of visits. Of course, it is not just one visit over for a hotspot in a particular season is definitely not enough. But considering the different factors, I thought we will go with that. But if there is good volunteer support and we can do it on a weekly basis, covering every Sunday, we'll do a raptor walk. Nothing like it. I'm on for it.
Oh, great. Well, that's nice. That's nice to know. I think we can probably try. Yeah, we'll see how things go as we start. I think, like GK said, I think once we get started, we'll have a very good idea of how many would regularly come, and then decide on how many more visits have to be made on a regular basis. Now,
Yeah.
Umesh has a quick question. How exactly do you check for earlier record besides eBird? What are the sources you look at?
Besides eBird, we went through. See, initially we had come up with Shantaram and Govind had come up with a list for the entire Chennai and surrounding list that we used to use for the bird race. That actually came in as the first source. We also looked at in the museum records, as well as we also looked at literature records from various sources, especially the one from Ashish Petty's bibliography, where we had gone through and we have collated those records as well. So it is not just eBird, and then Facebook posts, and then the initial checklist that we had from Shantaram and Govind, and then museum records, the Chennai museum records. So everything put together is when we arrived at this list.
Thanks, GK.
Okay, and any reason why we see largely female harriers? This is a question from Yuan. It's been his observation in Kanchi, Chengalpet area.
No specific. No specific thing that I can quote on that. Probably, especially harriers, they migrate separately. Especially the males and females migrate separately, and probably there could be some places where there is a male congregation is more. But then, other than that, I am not seeing any specific reason why we are seeing more females than the males.
Okay.
That could be a reason, because they migrate separately and then they go to different. Let's say probably the females are coming more more to the eastern end, and probably males are moving over to the west, things like that. But that is something that has not been studied, so I don't want to give a wrong answer on that.
Oh, thanks, GK. And Ashish, this is to answer your question regarding the whether we are initiating Objective 3, which is conservation of the habitats. Yes, we started in a very small way last time also. So we would again do this, get the local college students if possible involved. And we had actually spoken to the local eco clubs which had been there. This where, yeah, so now definitely it would be a good idea also as a support if we cannot do too many visits to a place. Maybe if we have a few people already there in the local place, they will be able to keep an eye. So between, fortnights, maybe the local people will go. Yes, the idea is also to get the locals involved in this as quickly as possible. Yeah, and Yuan has a question. It says that during this Vedandangal thing, they came up with this mapping of 80 lakes within a 5-kilometer zone, in and around Vedandangal. Understanding that's a linked lake system, not a single lake. So can these also be given some importance? Yeah, I think GK answered that because he was talking about Kanchipuram and Chengalpet when he said that the whole area is full of lakes, small ones, large ones, which are linked. So yes, we will definitely map. When we're doing this mapping exercise, we will definitely do that exercise also. Definitely. And Sheila, thank you very much. Sheila has been kind enough to. She's got a place, she says, which is near Kunimedu. So Kaliveli will definitely be included. So we can stay there as long as we want. So the long weekend, then we can cover a whole area around that side. Thanks, Sheila. Thank you very much. And finally, I think there is this suggestion from Dhruva. If we can offer it as an academic course by university research students worldwide, can take it up as part of their project work. I think this is something, GK, you have to answer.
Sorry, what is that? I didn't get it.
Whether this whole exercise of, the Raipur Watch alone, for instance, okay, if this can be cobbled together as an academic course where university research students worldwide can take it up as part of their project work.
I don't know.
I know. We haven't reached that level yet.
Yeah.
Dhruva, we actually need to, I think this maybe a year from now, we could probably even contemplate this, because by then we would have sufficient scientifically gathered data and analysis, which will help us to offer this as something which should, because I think why Dhruva was suggesting this is because out of 65 diurnal raptors in the entire country, within this 100 kilometers, this is the entire range of 100 kilometers north, south, and west. We have about 38 of them, which makes this entire region a huge hotspot.
Yeah.
Biodiversity-wise and biodiversity-wise also. Anyway,
Very true.
Yeah. So it could be the goal. Well, yes. Let's look at it. So,
Vijay, can I just add something to that? Just want to add something to that.
Yeah, please.
Just to remind that, during the session that GK had done earlier, there was also a request from Deccan Birders that we could support them in doing a similar project there. Okay. I think that interest and the requirement seems to be there in many places.
Very good.
I don't know about the academic course, but maybe, as a sort of project advice or something like that, we can definitely.
So the north of the arc, Umesh Bhai, which is, in and around the Pulicat area, maybe, people from DABS can help. To keep an eye on a more often basis. So that will be quite
actually,
close to.
Yeah. What they had in mind is something, centered around Hyderabad and surroundings.
Oh, I see.
Definitely we'll have to work out, but they wanted guidance in terms of.
Sure. Sure. I think we can give them. Sure. Yeah. Right then, I think this has been an excellent morning, an excellent session all round, and GK, thank you. Again, very, very much for taking time off, having done this. And GK, if you could kindly share the PPT with me, I would probably send it to everybody who have attended, and probably write a note also. And then I'll be in touch with you, and we will sit together and plan the future weeks as to when what. I think I would prefer if you can send me a timetable as to when, how you want it done before we start off on the initial things, getting people familiarized and in identification, what to look at, etc. If you can kindly send me a timetable, then I can share it, and everybody who's interested, all volunteers can come in.
Sure, Vijay. We'll do that.
Okay. All right. So thank you very, very much, GK. Thanks again. Yeah, you're one of us.
Thank you, GK, and thanks you, Yuvan and Vijay, everybody for having organized this.
Thanks, Mr. Vijay. Thanks, Mr. Shuman.
You don't have
thanks,
to
GK.
Bye, everyone.
This is all.
GK, wonderful.
We are all in part. Yeah, we're all in this together, and let's make a big, project of this. Let's make a great project.
Sure.
Thanks, GK. Thanks, Gopi.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, GK.
Have a good Sunday, everybody.
So thank you all then. Yuvan, I think you can close the meeting.
Stop the recording. Yuvan, you can stop the recording, right?
I will do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Umesh.